So here we are at the start of our journey of being able to speak to computers in a language we both understand. Like all journeys, you have a starting point and you start with a single step. Here's the list of things we want our duck survey system to do, and the first step on the list is to be able to enter the survey information for a single day. We've already decided on the information we need and the type of data it is. Okay, let's dive in and start PyCharm, the IDE we're going to use. If you've been following along, then you should have already created a project to hold our code. If not, then do so now. Details are in the video on installing PyCharm. PyCharm has kindly created a file, main.py, which is where we're going to write our code. Now, Python files can be named anything, but it's usual to give them a file extension of .py. We don't want the code that's been generated for us, so select it all and delete it. Also remove that red dot by left-clicking on it. We'll talk about these later on. A neat feature of PyCharm is that it saves files automatically for you, so we don't need to do this either. Now, for the moment, we're only interested in the code editor window. But of course, I'll talk about the other parts of the IDE as and when we use them. Okay, back to the survey information for a day. The first thing is being able to enter the date the ducks were counted. We decided that this would be a string for the moment. Writing code to get the data that someone types on a keyboard is actually quite difficult, but fortunately for us, Python has some ready-made built-in functions we can use. We'll come across the idea of functions later, but for the moment just assume that it's a way we can ask Python to do something complicated for us. Now type the following into main.py, print, open bracket, apostrophe, enter the date of the duck survey, apostrophe, close bracket, then press enter for a new line and then type input, open bracket, close bracket. Make sure you've typed it exactly the same as me or Python won't understand it. Python, like all computer languages, uses a vocabulary of words and symbols it can understand. This is much the same way as human languages work. If you speak English and I say the word cloud, you'll understand. But if I say the word mole, then unless you speak Swedish, you won't know what I'm talking about. It's cloud, by the way. Now print and input are functions that are built into Python. But before we go any further, notice that there's a warning triangle in the code editor telling us that there's something wrong with our code. If I double click on the triangle, the problems window opens, showing me what the problem is. The first part of the warning, PEP8, refers to a sort of standards document that deals with the style guide for Python. A style guide is a set of rules that, if you use them, leads to clearer and more understandable code. And that's what we want, so we should make sure that we fix any warnings and errors as we go. The second part, W391, references the rule that's been broken, and then a hint of what that rule is. Here it's because I've got an extra blank line at the end of my file. When I delete line 4, the warning goes away. Now remember, my code represents a conversation that I'm going to have with the computer, and that conversation is using Python as our common language. Now at present, all I've done is to write down a couple of lines of code, so now I have to run the code, or in other words, start my conversation. There are a couple of ways of running our code, but for the moment we'll use the IDE way. At the top of the editor you'll see a run symbol, so click on that. When I do, you'll see the run window open at the bottom and our code running. I know this because the text enter the date of this duck survey is shown, and underneath that the program is waiting for me to type something. I'll type 1st of January 2023 and press enter. The program's now finished, as the IDE has told me that the process finished with exit code 0, which just means that everything finished okay. Now, what actually happens when we run our code? Recall that all a computer does is to execute an instruction one at a time until all of the instructions have been done. It does this starting at the first instruction, it continues in sequence or in an order that we tell it to. So in our program, Python starts at the first line in the file, which is the print instruction. Python then tells the computer to carry out this instruction, in other words output the text between the quotation marks to the screen. Next comes the input instruction, which is Python's way of getting text from what the user types, in this case the string of characters that make up the words 1st January 2023. We don't do anything with this string at the moment, of course. When Python executes the input function, the program stops and waits for me to type something. When I press enter or return, the program starts again, making available whatever I typed to the rest of the program to use. And that's it. Our program doesn't do anything else, so Python reaches the end of the file, stops and ends our program. Well, that's it for the moment. We've learned a bit about Python files, have used 2 instructions from its language, and also seen how to edit, run and fix warnings in our code using PyCharm, our IDE. In the next video, we'll complete our code to a point where we can enter a full day's worth of survey information.